Thank you all for having me here today. I'd like to talk today about the ability of concealed carry license holders to use their firearms in defensive situations, um, the campus carry experience so far. And I've prepared the data that I'd like to share with you today in the context of guns being available in society at large. So you can buy a gun over at Sportsman's Warehouse a few blocks away. There are probably guns in homes across the street around campus and so on, right? In my mind, I came here with the belief, let's say, that the question before the board is, given that guns are available to anyone in society at large, any student on campus, more or less, if they're not felons and the rest, can possess firearms, whether campus carry should be allowed. Um, and so that's my approach. So we know that concealed carry license holders are exceedingly law-abiding. Somewhere between 1 in 10,000 and 1 in 6,000 carry licenses are revoked, and the number depends on the jurisdiction. These are numbers put together by the police departments or sheriff's departments that issue the licenses. By the numbers, they're as law-abiding as police officers are. And they're capable of accurately using their weapons both to ward off and fight off attackers. Police are 5 to 5.5 times more likely to shoot the wrong person in an active assailant situation. That's not a knock on police. Police arrive to a situation that's chaotic and insane and loud and possibly bloody, right? Whereas someone in a room where someone starts shooting knows perfectly well who started shooting. Right? According to a report commissioned by the CDC and some private foundations, including the Joyce Foundation, gun-using crime victims experience substantially lower injury rates than unarmed crime victims. So defending with a gun reduces the probability of injury in assaults and robberies by 49 and 46%, respectively. Property loss rates, which I think are less of a concern, are also much lower by far, actually. An active shooter or active assailant situation, and you'll hear me say the word active assailant because an attack doesn't have to come from someone using a firearm. It can come with a machete or someone driving a car or who knows what else. Um, these are the situations where an armed citizen can make an especially big difference. So most active assailant events end quickly, and even when they don't, police still have difficulty effectively engaging the perpetrators. So I'm going to read you a bit from a 2013 FBI report. Quote, in 63 incidents where the duration of the incident could be ascertained, 44, which is a hair under 70%, of 63 incidents ended in 5 minutes or less, with 23, which is just about 37%, ending in 2 minutes or less. Even when law enforcement was present or able to respond within minutes, civilians often had to make life and death decisions and, therefore, should be engaged in training and discussions on decisions they may face. Continuing the quote, as expected, therefore, many incidents ended before police arrived. Of the total 160 incidents, at least 107, again, just a hair under 67%, ended before police arrived and could engage the shooter, either because a citizen intervened, the shooter fled, or the shooter committed suicide or was killed by someone at the scene. End quote. Even when law enforcement does arrive in time, they're often powerless to help because they don't know either the shooter's identity or where in the building to find him. There was one example recounted by a police captain turned security consultant. First responders didn't know whether the assailant was among those fleeing the scene. When they entered the building and learned from panicked employees where the shooter was seen, they couldn't get reliable directions to that room. Then they needed key cards, which they didn't have to access the room. This is all remarkably reminiscent of the new law school building we have, by the way. I still get turned around trying to find my office. It took 2 hours and a robot shield before police could begin processing the scene. But employees were present when the shooting began. They were the targets, and they knew perfectly who the shooter was. They were in a position to respond to an immediate threat immediately, minimizing damage. And that's what this is about, by the way. This is responding to an immediate threat immediately. It's not about someone with a concealed handgun serving as a one-man SWAT team, storming a building, or I don't know what. The usual rules about what to do in these situations apply, right? It's an immediate threat immediately when the police aren't there yet. So the dynamics and the data I mentioned suggest that victim firearms use against an active assailant is likely to be effective and safe. Um, when concealed carry holders are around during an active assailant event, they're quite good at stopping them. Or getting data rather from a 2018 FBI report. In 2016 to 17, the FBI reported 50 active shooter incidents. The FBI was focusing on shootings. Citizens attempted to stop 10 of them, quoting the report. In 8 of those incidents, 1 or more citizens safely and successfully acted to end the shooting. 6 of the 10 incidents involved concealed carry license holders. Quoting again, in 4 of those incidents, citizens possessing valid firearms permits successfully stopped the shooter. In 1 incident, a citizen possessing a valid firearms permit exchanged gunfire with the shooter, causing the shooter to flee to another scene and continue shooting. In 1 incident, the citizen was wounded before he could fire at the shooter. So that's either a 67 or 83% success rate, depending on how you count the shooter who fled. And you'll note that the success rate was higher than in the situations where a citizen did not use a firearm to try to stop the shooting. In that case, it was only 50%. The report concluded by saying that, quote, armed and unarmed citizens engaged the shooter in 10 incidents. They safely and successfully ended the shootings in 8 of those incidents. Their selfless actions likely saved many lives. The enhanced threat posed, still quoting the FBI report, posed by active shooters and the swiftness with which active shooter incidents unfold support the importance of preparation by law enforcement officers and citizens alike. There was another source that talks about 33 incidents from 2000 to 2017 where an armed citizen intervened. That's 33 out of 283 total incidents. So in 33, an armed citizen intervened. The assailant was stopped 25 times. That's just under 76% of the time. The loss of life was reduced in an additional 6. So that's just over 18% of the time. So in 94% of the situations, the loss of life was reduced because an armed citizen was able to intervene. In fact, there have been a handful of instances where students stopped attacks. We wouldn't, and the number is in the single digits. We wouldn't expect there to be many, though, because campus carry is banned on somewhere around 90% of universities. I had the data that I was able to get together last night showed that campus carry is banned on 80% of public universities. So we wouldn't expect there to be many shootings stopped because students are not allowed, or students, faculty, or staff, anyone are not allowed to carry on most universities. So what's the experience been like so far? So widespread issuance of concealed carry licenses, there's somewhere around 20 million issued across the nation, hasn't endangered public safety and society at large, at ball games, rodeos, supermarkets, et cetera. The same can be said of the 22 or so percent of the nation's campuses that allow carry. Murderers often select targets because of the absence of armed defenders. And we know that. They say so. They say so in what the media likes to call their manifestos, right? And we can see that in their own handwriting, in their own words, they say that. And I have some examples if that's of interest. There's no correlation between the adoption of campus carry and enrollment. That claim was made when West Virginia adopted campus carry recently. PolitiFact checked the accuracy of the statement by the politician who said that. PolitiFact found that there was no correlation. It went up and down unrelated to the adoption of campus carry. There's not much reason to fear accidents either. That's not the case in Utah. In Utah, since 1995, every public school teacher with a concealed carry license has been allowed to carry at school when teaching. Between 95 and the end of 2019, which is the only data I was able to gather in time, there was only one instance of concern. A teacher improperly put a pistol, an unholstered pistol onto a toilet paper roll. It fell, it discharged, and hit the toilet. Last I checked, there's also never been an attack at a Utah school. I know of 7 accidental discharges at the roughly 475 universities on which carry is or has been allowed, and the number changes. That's why I say is or has been. All of the guns at issue were unholstered, right? Very unsafe way to carry a firearm. Someone mentioned rules. That's probably a rule you'd want to implement. Anyway, 2 of those 7 discharges resulted in those carrying improperly shooting themselves in the leg. 2 resulted in someone being grazed, and the other 3 didn't injure anyone. As with accidents, I know of no assaults, homicides, or suicides resulting from campus carry at the 475 universities on which it's been allowed. One last thing, and this one sort of maybe is an especially compelling figure. Commercial liability premiums are typically unchanged both for businesses that keep firearms ready on premises for security purposes and businesses open to the public where concealed carry laws have become more permissive. When 3 Kansas colleges wanted to arm their teachers, their insurer threatened to drop them. They easily found a new insurer who actually reduced their premium. The same is true for a Missouri school district that wanted to do the same thing. Also, the presence of a firearm in the home does not affect the cost of homeowners or renters insurance, even though most homeowners and renters insurance policies cover firearm liability claims. One last thought on this. There's training out there that's available to address firearm carry in these active assailant situations. One especially good one is called FASTER, the FASTER program. ALIVE is another. Both of these have been tested in Ohio to some good success. FASTER is the one I have some knowledge of. It provides up to 3 days of hands-on training with by instructors with police, SWAT, and federal law enforcement backgrounds. What's nice about that training is it includes both how to disable an active assailant with a firearm or without, but also how to provide emergency medical treatment to victims. So a life saved on the ground, someone who doesn't bleed out is also a life saved, right? And this training helps teach people how to save someone who has been injured. With that, Mr. Chairman, that's what I have. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank
Otherwise,
you,
I'll leave you to your business.
Professor.